All right, welcome everyone. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is now 6 p.m. on Monday, January 16th, 2023. At this time, I'd like to take roll call. If you're here, please say aye or here. Commissioner Shelton.
Here.
Commissioner Hassan. Aye. Commissioner Kostishka. Here. Commissioner Guzman. Here. Commissioner Vincent. Here. Thank you. And Elder Hutchison? Here. Perfect. Thank you. And we have two commissioners absent, Commissioner Greeno and Commissioner Ortiz. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. Before we begin, the ERC actually has a few housekeeping things to take care of. That'll just take a few minutes. Then we'll proceed with presenting the ERC report and having some guest speakers. So thank you for your patience. Commissioners, the next agenda item is to approve the agenda. Can I please get a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Shelton, second by Vincent. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All not in favor, please say nay. All right, agenda stands approved. Can I please get a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was on December 8th.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Shelton, second by Vincent. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay, the minutes stand approved. All right, so we'll go into agenda item E, regular business. And at this time, I'd like to introduce a guest speaker to present a land acknowledgement. So our guest speaker, her name is Louise Padron. She's a mother of three, citizen of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, community activist, former secretary for the Brown County Racial Equity Ad Hoc Committee. She works as a legal advocate for Indigenous victims of gender-based violence and has a background in clinical mental health counseling. Please welcome Louise Padron to the podium.
Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, okay, thank you. Sagoli Swagwake, hello everyone. My name is Louise Padron. I wanted to first say Yonko, thank you for being here today, and to the City of Green Bay's Equal Rights Commission for inviting me here to offer a land acknowledgement. As Tara had mentioned, I am a citizen of the Oneida Nation, whose reservation boundaries partially lie within the City of Green Bay. And for those who might not be familiar, a land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes, honors, and respects Indigenous people as traditional stewards of this land. Acknowledgement becomes even more meaningful when coupled with authentic relationships and informed action, which is what this committee is doing here today. Recognizing the land further fosters inclusivity, open dialogue, and community building, and is often part of a gathering, formal celebration, or business as usual today. And so with that, it's important to acknowledge that the land that Green Bay now sits was historically home to the Ho-Chunk, Potawatomi, and Menominee tribes who thrived here in Northeast Wisconsin for time immemorial. The ancestral land we stand on today is sacred, historical, and significant, as are the lands of all First Nations people. The Miami and Lakota people also once lived in Wisconsin, but their land in the state has been ceded entirely. Of the 574 federally recognized American Indian and Alaskan Native tribes, Wisconsin is home to 11, plus one that is seeking federal recognition. While the Ho-Chunk Nations, Forest County, Potawatomi, and Menominee tribes have persisted here, they have since relocated to the south, to the north, and to the west of where they once lived. And while the Oneida Nation Reservation is now the closest in proximity, it's important to note that their land was acquired through a treaty with the Menominee Nation. And similar to the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, it's important to recognize the Stockbridge-Munsee band of Mohicans who, like Oneida, was relocated here from what is now the northeastern part of the United States, as well as the Brotherton Indian tribe, who is the one that is seeking federal recognition. Other Wisconsin tribes include Ojibwe bands of Bad River, Lakota Ray, Lac du Flambeau, Redcliffe, Mole Lake, Skokogan, and St. Croix. And so by recognizing this land, we create a better public consciousness of Native history, sovereignty, and culture. So once again, Yanko, thank you to the City of Green Bay and the Equal Rights Commission for having me here and acknowledging the history and sacredness of this land.
Thank you, Louise, for being with us today. That was excellent, very educational, and we appreciate your service and commitment to our community. Next, we'll be moving on to the consideration with possible action to appoint a chair. I currently serve as the chairwoman for the Equal Rights Commission, so commissioners, you feel free to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that of nomination for Tara Yang as chair of the Equal Rights Commission moving forward. I'd like to speak to my motion if I can.
Hold on, sorry.
Yes, I'd like to speak to this motion if I could. Since serving as the inaugural chair of the Equal Rights Commission, Tara Yang has proven to be an indefatigable advocate for equality in this city, and has led this commission admirably through quite a bit of work. And I think the report that we have today is really a testament to her work. So that's why I'm nominating her, and I hope you'll join me in voting for her.
So thank you for the nomination. All right, so do I just go all in favor? All in favor of having me, Tara Yang, as the chairwoman for the Equal Rights Commission for the next year, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay, thank you so much for the nomination. I happily accept this. All right, thank you for that. The next agenda item is consideration with possible action to appoint a vice chair. Currently, Commissioner John Shelton is the vice chair.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Stephanie Guzman as vice chair. I'll speak to my motion. Is my mic on? Yeah, okay, good. I've served as the vice chair now since the beginning of the commission. I think it's really important, that we democratize the leadership of this commission. And Stephanie Guzman has been an incredible advocate for equality since joining this commission. We're so lucky to have her on the commission, and I think she'll do a great job as vice chair.
Thanks, John. All in favor of having Commissioner Stephanie Guzman as our vice chair for the Equal Rights Commission for 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. All right, congratulations. All right, so at this moment, we have completed all of our housekeeping tasks. So we'll be moving forward into the event portion of things. Again, I'd like to start out by saying thank you for being here, and I'm just so grateful that there's great support from the community to combat discrimination, injustice, and hate in our city. The Equal Rights Commission exists to ensure that the Equal Rights Ordinance that was passed in 2020 is upheld with integrity by residents, organizations, businesses, and the overall city of Green Bay. This ordinance was created specifically to prohibit forms of discrimination with employment, public accommodations, and housing. And as you all know, today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The ERC specifically chose this national holiday for a meeting because of the significance and the relevance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. His dream was to see people who faced oppression hold their country accountable to its own founding promises of freedom, justice, and equality. And in the same sense, the ERC is holding the leaders in the city of Green Bay accountable to provide fair and equal access to housing, a basic human right, a human right that many of the most vulnerable people in our city don't have. The most vulnerable people in the city are the ones who don't have seats at the decision-making tables. They are the people who aren't given a platform to share their unjust experiences. So it's time we make sure the needs of every person in our city are met without prejudice. Green Bay is the third largest city with a continuously growing diverse population, and if we do not take action now to create fair and equal access to housing, it will only lead to further disparities. It's our responsibility to create a space where the next generation will feel safe and welcomed. Together, we can continue Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream to provide every person the full experience and opportunity to live the American dream. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce and invite the Mayor of Green Bay, Mayor Eric Genrich, to speak. Mayor Genrich was the driving force behind this anti-discriminatory equal rights ordinance. And in the past year, his administration significantly increased the Human Rights Campaign Municipal Equity Index. From the start, he has pledged to make the city a space that is welcoming for all, and his track record clearly supports his words. So please welcome the Mayor Eric.
Well, thanks so much for the introduction, Chair Yang. Thanks for having me here tonight. It's a little bit awkward not being in the chair and with the gavel, being in this room, but it's really fitting for me to be a guest and for our council members to be guests to this meeting as well. Appreciate their attendance. This is the show of the Equal Rights Commission. As Chair Yang said, this was part of the creation of our non-discrimination ordinance, which was brought forward by former Alder Dorff and adopted by our Common Council. The Equal Rights Commission was part of that creation of that ordinance, and I think it's really fitting for them to be conducting this meeting and producing this report on housing, as Chair Yang said, on Martin Luther King Day here in the city of Green Bay. I think we all recognize Martin Luther King as the conscience of our nation, and I hope that our Equal Rights Commission will be the conscience of our Common Council, of my office, of our community, and they've certainly proven to be up to the task to this point. The report is, as I said, not a production of mine, not a production of our Common Council, but I've had the chance to read through it, and I've been really impressed with all the work that's gone into it and the recommendations included. This is not something that was put together just over a couple days or a couple weeks. The commission spent a lot of time and energy putting this together, gathering input from the community, and that speaks to the seriousness of this commission and how seriously they take the charge of fulfilling their duties as the Equal Rights Commission. It also speaks to, at least the way that I understand democracy working, and that is not from a top-down approach or the mayor or the Common Council sort of dictating what policies are going to be adopted in this community, but really taking a wide-ranging approach to gathering ideas and solutions and moving forward with policy proposals that have a lot of buy-in from those that are most impacted. So again, just really grateful to all of you, particularly to Chair Yang and Vice Chair Shelton, but the commission as a whole for all the work that you've put into this document and the mission of the Equal Rights Commission as a whole. So I thank you on behalf of myself, of course, but more importantly on behalf of our city. I see the value in the work that you're doing, and just really appreciate everything that you've done to bring this forward to everyone tonight. So thanks so much for doing it.
Thank you, Mayor Genrich, for being the positive change that we needed in Green Bay. We appreciate all your effort and commitment to make Green Bay a city that welcomes all. I would like now to invite Commissioner John Shelton to present the highlights of the ERC Housing Report. Commissioner Shelton is the Vice Chair of the ERC, former Vice Chair now. He is an Associate Professor and Chair of Democracy and Justice Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, and he is the author of 2 books, most recently, The Education Myth, How Human Capital Trumped Social Democracy. He is the president of UWGB United, the faculty and staff union at UW Green Bay, and vice president of higher education for the American Federation of Teachers Wisconsin. Please welcome Commissioner Shelton.
So thank you for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here today to talk about, to kind of talk through the highlights of the first ever report of this Equal Rights Commission. I really want to thank everybody for being here today, and I'm going to try to remember to keep addressing the folks here as well, right? Because this is as much about letting you all know about our recommendations as it is, letting folks in the city know about them. I want to thank Mayor Ginnerich for appointing the city's first ever Equal Rights Commission. We really couldn't ask for a better group of folks doing this work. And in particular, I want to thank Chair Terry Yang for really organizing so much of the work that we've done over the past couple of years. It's been really, such an honor and a privilege to work with you. Today we celebrate one of the most important chapters in the history of what it means, the story we tell ourselves about what it means to be Americans. As Americans, we honor certain touchstones every year, right? The most important, of course, is the 4th of July, in which we celebrate a simple but really profound promise that has shaped the course of world history, right? In newspapers and public squares across the country on that day, almost 250 years ago now, the founders of this nation proclaimed, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And this is a part that we don't always remember when people are quoting the line, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, I'm guessing every person in this room knows that that promise failed mightily to live up to its lofty expectations at the time this nation was founded. That promise was founded, in part, as we heard from the land acknowledgement, on violating native sovereignty. Women didn't count as full citizens at the time. Men without property didn't count as full citizens at the time. And of course, the proliferation of slavery created what one of our greatest American thinkers, Frederick Douglass, pointed out was a cruel mockery of freedom for African Americans. Each January, we celebrate the life of Martin Luther King Jr. because of the work he did to make our nation better, to force Americans to live up to our lofty ambitions of equality. King led marches against white supremacy in the South and against deeply embedded racial inequality, especially in housing in northern states like Illinois. His ambition for equality in this nation was really truly befitting the ambitions of our founders. King fought for the notion that economic security for everyone was fundamental. He was murdered, in fact, in Memphis in 1968 for standing in solidarity with some of the city's poorest workers, the overwhelmingly African-American force of sanitation workers who were fighting for a decent job with decent wages and dignity. And so this is a day for King, but it's also a day for all of the other civil rights activists, from Fannie Lou Hamer in Mississippi to Vel Phillips in Wisconsin, who don't have their own day. Today we celebrate them all. We celebrate them all as heroes. Heroes who, as much as anyone else in this country, remind us that the most important thing that defines us as Americans is to fight for the ideals of equality on which this nation was founded but have only been imperfectly realized. These ideals, I can tell you, were never far from the forefront of our minds as a commission where we understood the profound responsibility to make the city of Green Bay freer and more equal. And so we decided that we should vote on this day to approve our first report. A report we think is of really great importance for the future of this city. In our modest way, we see this report as a tribute to the work of King and so many others on whose shoulders we stand. Now, over the course of the ERC's first meetings in 2021, it became apparent that housing really represented a challenge for so many people in our community. So this commission got to work, digging into the data that already existed and holding public hearings to learn more. What we found is that though Green Bay is a great city to live in, it is, like lots of other cities in this country, embedded in a crisis of national proportions. Those of limited means, virtually everywhere in this country, struggle to find access to good housing. There are cities where the crisis is worse than Green Bay, but the struggle for housing has grown much more drastic in recent years, and it threatens our future. There's a dramatic shortage of housing for working families, especially those at 30% or less of median income in the city. And as of 2020, almost half of the city's renters pay more than 30% of their income on housing. These numbers are simply not sustainable. There are a lot of reasons for this course of events in Green Bay, which we spell out in the report, and I really encourage you to read. But if you're not going to read the report, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of it. At the national level, though workers are more productive than they have ever been in this country, their wages have barely gone up in the past few decades when you adjust for inflation. At the state level, legislation makes it difficult for municipalities like ours to act to protect tenants. But we wanted to focus specifically on Green Bay, and what we heard in our public hearings was harrowing. We heard about rental companies, some that are based outside of our community, purchasing properties and dramatically raising rents, pushing families practically overnight to face the impossible decision of sacrificing other essentials like food, moving to substandard housing, or leaving our community entirely. We heard about service providers who work with families experiencing homelessness or victims of intimate partner violence who simply cannot find housing where they can place the people who need it. We heard about how renters who use Section 8 vouchers face discrimination in the rental market, required to have 3 times a month's rent for a deposit in many cases, making it impossible to use this legal form of income to find their family a place to live. And we found that several groups in particular faced exceptional challenges to accessing housing within these conditions, in large part because the overall lack of affordable housing gives landlords an unfair amount of power to dictate the terms of renting. We heard about victims of intimate partner violence, virtually all of whom are women, who are required to provide outrageous fees and deposits up front and live in fear that landlords will evict them if the police are called for any reason. This leaves survivors in the highly vulnerable position of being afraid to call law enforcement for protection if a former partner attempts to assault them or to intimidate them. We heard about LGBTQ youth who get cut off from their family as minors because of who they are or who they love. They can sometimes find temporary shelter, but often are unable to attain permanent housing. We heard about trans youth who in some cases cannot even find shelter, since some organizations will not let them stay if they don't conform to their preconceived notions about gender identity. And we heard about young adult LGBTQ folks and their fears of being targeted by landlords based on their identity. We heard about African Americans for whom disproportionate, unwanted surveillance by landlords, combined with disproportionate, unwarranted surveillance by the police, to seriously limit their access to safe, affordable, high-quality housing. Fear of eviction among many African American families is constant, as Black renters are targeted for ordinary activities such as hosting barbecues and playing music that white families take for granted. A call to the police for Black renters, even if it does not lead to a citation, often leads to eviction or biases a future landlord from renting, since the incident and identifying information can still end up in the public record on Green Bay crime reports. And we heard about immigrants and refugees who struggle to find good housing because they face overwhelming economic barriers from landlords, often connected to language and cultural difference. Immigrants and refugees also fear eviction if they complain to landlords to fulfill their legal obligation to perform basic maintenance. These are just some of the things that we document in the report. And I encourage you again to read it for yourself. But as we thought about how to present these findings and how to offer recommendations for change, we were guided by the American tradition as well as global traditions that remind us all that access to safe, quality, affordable housing is an unalienable right. And we're not doing our part if we don't see it that way. So in the report, we document American politicians, thinkers, and activists from Abraham Lincoln during the 1860s to Franklin D. Roosevelt's Economic Bill of Rights in 1944, to the fight of King and other civil rights activists in the 1960s who argued that access to a decent home is a right that all Americans should enjoy. We also point to religious traditions, Catholicism, Islam, and Judaism, which all point to the connection between basic human dignity and housing. So our premise is that though this massive problem is not one we can fix by ourselves in Green Bay, there is quite a lot we can do right now to get us closer, as the Declaration promises, to secure these rights right here in our city. So we offer 3 sets of recommendations in the report. First, immediate recommendations that we can do very soon and without an enormous expenditure of resources. Immediately, we have to do more to make sure that tenants know their rights. The city has already begun to hold training sessions for tenants, and the organization NeighborWorks already has a guide in place for tenants. The city should expand this training, work with service providers to ensure this guide is kept up to date and disseminated to tenants, particularly those from marginal communities. And, importantly, this guide should be translated into Spanish, Somali, Hmong, and other languages to fit the needs of migrants to our region. The city should also use federal block grant dollars to hire a full-time housing investigator. Right now, we only have a part-time housing investigator. And explore the idea of contracting with a local organization to provide housing advocacy for our residents. Right now, tenants have to work with an organization in Milwaukee to do that. Second, we offer intermediate recommendations. We believe the city should develop a certification program to publicly praise landlords who deal fairly with tenants and prospective tenants, and to communicate with the public about those that don't deal fairly. We also recommend that the city set up a fund to pay for necessary repairs to rental units when landlords refuse to make them. A program of this kind would entail a method for tenants to document the landlord's refusal to take appropriate action, and the city could then make those repairs and bill the landlord. Finally, we wish to endorse a specific recommendation from the City of Green Bay's housing study for 2019 for zoning reform to increase the city's affordable housing stock. We understand city administration is already pursuing this, and we strongly endorse it. Finally, as for long-term recommendations, that's the last finally, I promise. This is where it's really crucial to understand that housing is a right and that our city will only continue to be ranked as a top place to live in this country if we invest substantially more resources into funding much more affordable housing. First, when developers create more housing, we believe they should be required to create a minimum number of affordable units. We strongly urge the city to pass an affordable housing ordinance modeled on Bloomington, Minnesota's, which ensures any new development has a specific percentage of affordable housing. Developers in our city profit from renting to residents in our city. They also have an obligation to ensure those profits help to bring a solution to the crisis our low-income residents face. We also recommend the city use available parcels of land to create additional temporary housing for people experiencing homelessness. We also believe the city should continue and expand two efforts already in the works. These are long-term efforts. First, to develop an affordable land trust, which would allow low-income residents to purchase housing on land owned by the city. And second, to subsidize the purchase price of housing for first-time homebuyers. Mayor Ginrich's Great Being Home program, announced just last year to great fanfare, is an excellent start. Let's keep this going and make it available to even more Green Bay residents. And this is really important, the city must find creative avenues to purchase and rent even more affordable housing directly to city residents. The city already manages public housing. We should offer more, a lot more, so that no resident in Green Bay lacks high-quality, affordable housing. Access to a good place to live is a promise deeply woven in the fabric of the American creed of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To do anything less than to move toward that, to make good on our promise, would be to let down all of those like Martin Luther King Jr., who we celebrate today, who came before us to secure these rights. We urge the city to follow these recommendations as a step in that direction, and we urge Green Bay citizens to prioritize these recommendations when they cast their ballots for city leadership and to take actions themselves, as Martin Luther King and so many others did, to help make these recommendations a reality in our city. Thank you so much.
John, that's good. Joe, is my mic on? Thank you so much, Commissioner Shelton. Without Commissioner Shelton's day and night hard work, we wouldn't have this report. So give him another round of applause, please. I can honestly say that I'm gonna miss you being vice chair because I learn from you, and every time you speak, I learn something new. So thank you for that, and thank you for your service to this commission. I know
I'm not going anywhere.
I was just gonna say that. I know you're not going anywhere, but it's still gonna feel a little different without you here. But I know we'll have a great replacement for you. Thank you again for sharing the highlights of the report. Everything that you listed in there was really important, but again, we do emphasize and we do encourage the public to read the full report. Thank you again, John. Next, I'd like to invite a special guest to share their impact story. Her name is Bianca Guzman, and she is a displaced single mother of 4 here in Green Bay. 3 of her 4 children are enrolled in Green Bay public schools and participate in organizations such as the Boys and Girls Club. Despite experiencing homelessness, Bianca is enrolled at NWTC. Today, she is working towards her goal of getting an education and opening more opportunity for her and her children. Please welcome Bianca to the podium.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. My name is Bianca. I just want to say thank you to everyone for your time And I want to apologize in advance if I cry because this is a very real, it's a very raw subject that we're about to talk about. So, as you guys see, I'm a single mother of 4 kids. These are my 3 daughters and my son's back there. My journey to affordable housing here in Wisconsin started the day that it was May of 2022. My 7-year-old daughter was video calling my oldest sister, and what was a scene of abuse. So pretty much in that moment, my sister, through the video camera, she saw me crying hysterically, and she saw my husband screaming at my face. In that moment, my marriage of 9 years was exposed, and my sister decided that my children's safety was more important than whatever relationship I had going on. And that day, she drove 8 hours to pick me and my 4 children up. We literally packed our whole belongings into this vehicle, small van where 5 people were transporting their whole life of 9 years to come and start fresh in Wisconsin. Upon coming here, I didn't have any clue what I was gonna do, but the only thing I knew I was gonna do was to get on my feet and receive opportunities from the community that I know has plenty of resources. Once I got to Wisconsin, I knew that my children were free of the fighting, the yelling, and the peace that we had, and we arrived to a safe place. Upon arrival, I started to look for a job. I got a new car, and I was able to finally start my journey towards a house. And as you guys all know, most of these apartment complexes have housing apartment fees. And when you're barely trying to get on your feet, it's very hard to take $20 out of your kid's lunch to go fill out this application and more. When you don't have a house, you're filling out 3 applications a week, 2 applications, whatever you can afford. And once I was able to finally apply for this, my sense of security came crashing down. I was in a car crash with my kids, and now I had to start over from scratch. I had to get a job that was closer to my home because I no longer counted on transportation to get to and from work. And on top of that, I was staying at my mother's house. Her landlord then told her that she was about to get evicted because she had extra people staying with her. Obviously, when I came here, my plan wasn't to be couch surfing. It was to come, get money, and be able to get accepted in a home where me and my children would be home without having anybody threatening us to call or evict our family members. So upon applying and having to move again once more, I realized that that was the 3rd move that me and my children had done in less than 6 months. And I still kept hope. I then started working again, started applying again, and with every single application I filled, I was hopeful, and I prayed every single application in hopes that they would say yes to me and my family. However, every application I sent out was just a rejection, a no. They said no to me, and every time I felt heartbroken and defeated because now how am I supposed to take care of my 4 kids? If I don't find housing for them, Child Protective Services can get called. There's lots of stuff that are not putting me and my family at risk for this. However, every time I got no, this is what I heard. No, because I had low credit. No, because I had no income or low income. No, because I have little to no work history. I was in a relationship for 9 months. 6 of those, I was a stay-at-home mom. So my work history isn't the longest. It wasn't until I separated from my husband and then was able to start working on my own that my work history shows up. And then the most important was that no, because I have a background from 2012 that I committed when I was 18 for THC, which is something that our neighboring cities like in states, Illinois, Michigan, are now legalizing. And yet, something that happened 10 years ago where I have not committed any other crime since then, they're still saying no to me. And I committed my sentence. I learned from my lesson. And like I said, I didn't commit a crime after that because my safety and my kids was more important than anything else. So today on Martin Luther King Day, I remember in school learning about everything he did to fight for us, for our equality. And I hear the quote, "Let freedom ring." He fought for his life to see us as equals, to see every minority as equal, and yet we're still just seen as minorities. How can we overcome poverty when they keep saying no? He fought for this freedom, just like I fought for my children's safety, for my freedom. How I'm fighting to be free of seen as a criminal, as a felon when I'm a mother, I'm a student. I'm more than just that. And I just want to say thank you, Martin Luther King, because even though you opened up this journey that we're now stepping into, there's still a lot of work to do. And I will continue to do whatever I can to fight for the freedom and the justice that us as single women of domestic abuse, as mothers, as elders, my grandparents living off Social Security, now with the increasing rent, the inflation costs, even a person on Social Security and disability will not be able to afford the house in a couple months into the year. So besides this being a housing issue, it's also a humanity issue, because everyone deserves to have affordable housing and a place to call home. So with just this, I would like to leave you guys with one last quote from Martin Luther King that says, "Our lives begin to end the day that we become silent to things that matter to us." So today, I'm speaking up about something that matters to me, about housing. So if you're able to make a difference, don't hide behind, our housing equality, discrimination policies that are in hand. Take that risk. Say yes to a single mom, because at the end of the day, that woman could be more responsible than any tenant you had said yes to before. So thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for sharing your story. And thank you for being brave enough to be here tonight. It's not easy being a victim and then transitioning into a voice. There are many others just like you in our community, so this is going to show them strength, and that there can be, there's a platform for you to speak and share your experiences. Despite the adversity that you face, you continue to be so resilient, but we have to change that narrative. You can't always be resilient every single day, 365 days a year. It's time that you get a break. And we hope, as a commission, we can do that. We can give you a little break. Thank you again. Now I'd like to invite Bianca's sister, which is Commissioner Stephanie Guzman, our vice chair now. Stephanie is a graduation specialist for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Green Bay, and was once a club kid herself. Against all odds, she graduated with a degree in psychology from UWGB and is currently working hard on joining the slim 4% of Hispanic women who have already received a master's degree in the U.S. Currently, she works with students and families from Washington Middle School and is proud of coming back to the school she once walked the halls as a young teenager. She is a firm defender of our underserved, marginalized, and oppressed communities in her role with the Boys and Girls Club and as a commissioner for the Equal Rights Commission. Please welcome Commissioner Guzman to the podium.
Damn. Well, how does one begin a speech after that, right? Well, I'll tell you. Now she's living her journey as a mother, but I remember that what I'm going to talk about today is something that you lived as my sister. How does one begin a speech that carries so much weight, How does one encapsulate the whole truth that is to be homeless in Green Bay? I'll tell you how, with the truth and nothing but the truth. And I'll tell you something else. In this moment, I want to invite every single person here to take off the lenses of the things that they feed us out there on the news, the division, the political part, because honestly, this issue here has nothing to do with what party what you want to believe in or who you want to. This is something to do with humanity, which is what you said, with what the mayor said, and what this commission stands for. So, I'll begin with my truth, because I can only speak from my perspective. And here it goes. I'm a proud daughter of immigrants from Mexico. I was raised by a resilient single mother who created a home for herself and her 4 daughters in what was a little 1-bedroom apartment on Brozig Street, here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. God, am I so thankful for that landlord. Never once did he harass us for payments, insult us for being late from time to time, because I promise you it happened. Never once did they harass us with eviction for making noise or anything minuscule that could be dealt with in in-person and honest conversation. That landlord was well aware, I'm sure, of all the little noise too. You know, there was 4 little feet pitter-pattering around in the upper apartment. I'm sure they heard the crying of my younger sisters when their big sister, which was me, couldn't feed them because there was nothing to give them other than crackers with ketchup, microwaved hot dogs. I'm sure they heard the arguments my mother had on the phone with my father begging him to please come help us. See, it was 5 people, 1 room. 5 people, no food. But that apartment on Brozick Street was something beautiful and a place amazing to grow because of what it represented, and that was home. We had a home. Before Brozick, though, we had Zizi Avenue. You see, that was a full house. We were a traditional American family. We had a mom, a dad, 2 incomes, and a mortgage and taxes. It was finally the American dream that my parents came to America for. I watched as they made that dream come true. We cried together when we laid on our home on Zizi Avenue with no furniture. However, as much as that house was like a dream and I had my own room, the door in my room was not enough to cover the violence, the insults, the abuse, the drunkenness that my mother had to stand daily. I could go into detail of everything that happened in that house, but I will not because I already wear the scars and so do my sisters. But I think you can imagine what happens in a home where your father comes home every day and he forgets that his role as a father. And so what happened is my mom one day did the thing that I never thought she would do, something Latinas don't know how to do sometimes, and it's to stand up. Because why? She relied on this man. This was the only home, and sometimes it's used as a manipulation tactic, which is something I think that our landlords sometimes forget. And so what happened is my mom said no, and my dad lined us up one by one and asked us, 4 daughters, again, 5 people, are you staying with your mom or are you going to come with me? And every single one of us felt like in that moment we had to make a decision, and we said our mother. And my dad kicked us out of that house in that cold winter. We had nowhere to go. And so my mom packed us up in her little room, in her little car, and we went to the only people she could call, which was grandparents. Similar to what's happening to my sister now, we were all stuffed in that apartment, and their landlord started calling, saying, why is there so many people? But one honest conversation, and they stopped getting on us. Isn't that interesting how it's been 10 years ago, and back then they had a little more heart than they do now? Mind you, I just want to reiterate that my mother was doing everything possible because I saw her get in that car, calling everyone she knew, every job, anybody who had ever offered one, saying, I'm alone now, I need a job, I need to work. And even though we lived in that beautiful home, again, the violence was ridiculous. My sister and I shielded my 2 little ones from everything that they weren't supposed to see. And it was because we knew that one day they would grow up, and we knew that we didn't want them to go through this again. Because what happens is, when you see trauma, it sometimes starts over, and it starts as a cycle again and again and again. And so in order to break from it, somebody has to say something, as you just said, and my mom did. And so we were homeless at that moment. That night, I remember sleeping on the floor in my grandparents' living room. My mother would wake us up. She would fold our blankets and our pillows because she didn't want to be a burden to those who would take us in. They call it couch surfing, which I know much of, you know much of, and a lot of our homeless communities here know a lot of. My mom knew that she had to move fast because someone could evict my grandparents for housing us in their 1-bedroom apartment as well. She was able to find our first home on Brozick Avenue, and she was so proud of it. It was bittersweet because I saw many tears, and my mom cried silently because we had no furniture. We just spent all of her money on deposit and rent. However, back then it was possible, it was affordable, and it was not a dream. And you here are now, 10 years later, and it is a dream. Back then it was a thing you could do. My mom even decked out that apartment to the best of her abilities and goodwill, hand-me-downs, Jesus and the cross and the Virgin Mary on every wall, because she was so thankful. And God, that ugly green sofa that someone gave us, but gave the best hugs, because every night we laid on it, and that was the only thing that we had. And it was like a hug, a much-needed one. So I promise you that today, even though you're hearing these things that might be a little raw and heavy, they're not exaggerated. They are the truth. And in order for us to be able to move somewhere, we have to stop seeing this as a story of fiction. I don't know how many more people you need to see up here broken, talking about things that are vulnerable and private for you to believe And so I'm asking every single one of you guys, without even having to know your titles, because in the end, that is not who you are. I'm trying to appeal to the human being that we can do something. If we have extra income, we know where we can invest. If we don't have extra income, we can share a hug. We can give a little bit of that much needed, seeing her as a person and not as the labels. I'm done and sick and tired of all the representatives. They think they need to make issues like this into partisan ones. We don't. We really don't. This is a person, and it's just one person compared to every single one that if you just drive South Jefferson, I'm sure that we could hear a lot more stories like this. So to finalize what I have to say here today is it's very hard to come up here and explain and tell people when someone is displaced. I was displaced. We were displaced. We know how that feels, but it is ridiculous to me that back then my mom could get it together in such a short time, get an apartment, have the support, and now here we are so much time later and it's impossible. And the worst part is that I love the city. See, I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and I came to live here with my parents. They took a bet on Green Bay, Wisconsin back then when there was no grocery markets that had your language. There was none of your food. Back then when Mr. Ike, who was the landlord on Cedar Street, got the pain that we suffered there, but he gave us the most amazing home. He knew that there was over 10 people living in that house, but he always went. And whenever he went to visit us, the greatest landlord I ever had, he made sure he checked in on us, the kids. And he always took us something, whether it was a Happy Meal or just some divas to say hi. Sometimes he even told my mom, you know what, you don't have to pay the rent this month, because he would go check in on us and see how we were living. It was just that human decency where if you know you don't need that month, the fact that the house was always clean, because that's how we would pay him back. Damn, this landlord, he was amazing to us. We're going to give him a gift. I remember when we went to his house for his 70th birthday, we took him a homemade cake. We sang him Las Mañanitas, because that's just what you do. And he blew the candles with us, as if he was a part of our family. And to this day, I remember Mr. Ike. If you are still alive or if your families are watching them, he was the landlord on Cedar Street, and he gave us a home when we had nothing. And Brozick Avenue, I remember her. That landlord would also check in on us and always make sure that we were okay. And so what I'm trying to say here today is we no longer have those stories. I very rarely do, and when I do hear them, I'm so happy, and I wish that there was a way that I could give them all the business. See, I think what we are trying to say here today is right. We should reward those that have that heart. And finally, I just want to end by saying that I want to thank you for coming up here and talking about that. I know that this is something that is very, very, very deep inside, and it's hard to talk about. But I also want you to know that you inspire me, along with a lot of other people who were a part of this report, because it's not just you, sister, it's a lot of people. And I just want them to know that recently I got engaged, and I want to have my own home. And I would like to one day find affordable housing. I was able to be rescued by a landlord recently. You see, when I lived on South Jefferson just two years ago, that landlord was one of the most amazing ones we ever knew, but he retired, see? It seems like this is a story, a pattern. And the new people that came in made it very, very known that they were not welcoming, to the point where we couldn't put any kind of art. I remember that it was when they took away our rights as women for abortion to decide. And all we did was put a nice little poster on the window that said, our body, so in case anybody walked by, they knew that we understood that we were with them. And what happened? They sent us a 5-day eviction notice saying that we were hurting their windows, and if we didn't take it down, that they were evicting us. Me, somebody who has paid the rent every single month, who has good credit, who has good everything. And I've worked so hard for that. Imagine getting a 5-day eviction notice for a poster, because my landlord didn't stand with my political views. I never once wanted to make a fight out of that. All I was doing was respecting their home, keeping it clean, because they came over a lot, many times even unannounced, and I think that's illegal. But guess what? What she didn't know is that I was going to do and say something about it. Imagine all of the community members who can't. And so what ended up happening was that since I refused to take that down, because it was not something that should have taken us to an eviction, she took it there. She brought it here. And right now, if you were to look at my record, there is an eviction on there. And not because I owe any money, because I don't, because I refused to take down a poster. And so what she did was ruin my record by showing something like that. And trust me, we're fighting it. But think of all the time and money it's going to take for us to do that. I speak English. And so all I can think about is all of the community members that cannot do this, who cannot fight like this. I was rescued by a Hispanic landlord then. I rented on the Melchor Drive. I now live on Melchor Drive, and that woman is Latina, and she gets it. And it was very nice for me to be able to get a landlord like that because, one, I texted her, I told her my problem. She even told me, if you can't pay me today, you can pay me in 3 months. And I paid her. And I live a better life for it. And here I am now being able to do something with that peace that comes with being able to find a home. Your kids, how can you expect them to do well in schools when they don't have a home? And so that is what this is about. I am able to be where I am because my mom found us a home. And so now the fact that we are 10 years from what has happened to me and we are worse now than we were then, there must be something wrong. And so before I make Green Bay my permanent home, I need to make sure that this place gives me the love that I know, not just to me, but to my loved ones. And so even though I'm now starting my journey to my own little family, I just want you to know that I am watching very, very carefully the people who are representing us and are considering us, because if not, then we're going to have to start taking measures to our own hands and maybe running so we could be up here someday. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for sharing your story and for being brave again, just like your sister, and being up on the podium and being the voice. There, like you and your sister stated, there are many others out there who don't have the chance to be at the podium. So thank you for doing that and speaking up. We are so happy to have you in our community, and we're happy that your family's here with you. And we're so proud of who you are and what you contribute to the community. So thank you. Our next speaker is Commissioner Hassan. He is the co-founder and executive director of Community Services Agency, Inc., COMSA, a refugee and immigrant resource center in Green Bay. Their mission is to meet the special needs and challenges affecting refugees and immigrants by building a resourceful community that contributes to the well-being of its members and those of the communities in which they live. Please all welcome Commissioner Hassan to the podium.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Terry Yang. It's really difficult to speak after Bianca and Commissioner Guzman, so it was touching. And there's something that I also wanted to put this into perspective, that I came from a refugee background. So when we came to this country, we were promised, through the resettlement program, we were promised, by the resettling agencies for us to have various needs or various assistance through the resettlement, including housing. So when you move from a war-torn country that you don't, or from oppressed society, and you move to liberal country like this, you expect your life to be at ease. But no, that's not the reality. The organization that I lead, co-founded, works with refugees and immigrants. And our mission is building resourceful community that contributes to the well-being of its members and those in the communities in which they live. So I just wanted to also give few remarks about things that we see. We see a lot of discrimination. We see a lot of things that people could not, the community that we serve need. One of it is a language and cultural barriers. If, last year alone, more than 50% of the services that we have done at our center is housing-related services. I'm not talking about programming, I'm talking about services. Housing-related questions. One of these is discrimination. So I want to give you one quick example. with Commissioner John and I did recently. 47 residents were sent an eviction notice by a certain, company, managing company, and their rentals were increased overnight without their knowledge. And they were told if they don't sign and pay, 5 days notice of eviction. They have no any other choice but to show up at our office and come and explain to us what's happening. As usual, as one of you will do, is I decided to email the company and talk to them about ways for our office and their office to open lines of communication so that we can understand where this increment is coming from. They did not respond to my email. I don't know, is it that my name starts from Saeed and ends with Hassan? I don't know, are they just seeing me as any other, because they are dealing with a lot of Somalis there, are they seeing me as one of the clients that they are manipulating? I'm not sure. So I called them to talk about my email and ways to open lines of communication and possibly help them if there is any language barriers between the residents, the tenants that's renting from them. They did not respond. The third mode of communication that was accessible was also text. And I haven't received any feedback. So this time around, I had no choice but to relay the message to John, who's also a board member of our organization, to help me if maybe John Shelton versus Saeed Hassad is going to be showing some answers here. So John did email them, called them and text them, and neither do they responded to his request. I called John and said, now my office is just, brims, full. People are just demanding answers. They're saying, Saeed, you are sleeping peacefully. We are not sleeping peacefully. So John and I drove, went to their office, knocked their door, and asked them that we both emailed you, called you, texted you, you did not respond. Now we are here in person. Are you able to talk to us? Now they could speak with us, and we told them we are not, we are not here to do anything but talk to you about how we can help you with your tenants. They offered to come on a Sunday morning where basically everyone is not working. I invited them at the office. They came there, and then we answered most of the pressing questions the tenants had, and the lines of communication has opened. This is one of millions of stories that's happening. We see housing that, rentals are increased without their notice. We have seen, for example, accessible housing. We have Afghan refugees who recently arrived in the area, and their median household is 10, 12 family members, and we don't have housing units that can accommodate them. So for us as a refugees and immigrant community, housing is the start and the end of everything. And housing is also becoming as a push factor for many of refugees and immigrants who love Green Bay to be their home, but otherwise could not be here because of lack of housing. Discrimination always happens. My landlord, a friend of mine, but shockingly told me, if I continue more than these 6 kids, he's going to evict me out of that 3-bedroom. So that's what we see every day. So what does this day, a day that we are supposed to be remembering the dreams of Martin Luther King means to refugees. So As we remember the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, let's not forget the struggles of refugees and immigrants around the world who are fighting the rights of, and also who are fighting the discrimination and persecution and fleeing home as we speak. Doctor's message of equality and justice for all is relevant today as during the Civil War, as we know that we have to stand in solidarity with these families who are persecuted and fleeing in immeasurable circumstances. So these people already have a lot of trauma in them. They faced a lot of situations in their own camps or places they were. But when they come here, if they expect the host community to give them a sense of security, and that's housing. Dignity to an extent that they are seen as a human being, but not given a kind of treatment that they will otherwise not would not be, So this is what we are seeing with the refugees and immigrants, and I would like to conclude my speech by saying that let's remember to live equally. Let's remember to make sure that there are others who are not like you, who cannot be able to read, understand, and speak the language I speak here. So I would like to also thank the commissioners for making sure that including refugees and immigrants into the report. But that is just a tip of the finger. But if we expose the challenges that they face in terms of housing, it's more. So I would like to thank each and every one of you for participating in today's gathering. And I will also urge you to read the report and reach out to us as an organization to learn more about the challenges that refugees and immigrants are facing here in Green Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hassan. I know you are the pillar for many families in your community, and I thank you for your time for being here and participating with us on the commission. Thanks. Next, our last speaker for tonight serves as a council member on the City of Green Bay's Common Council, Alderman Hutchison. Alderman Hutchison moved to Green Bay 36 years ago with his wife, Deborah, and has helped raise his 3 children here. He worked as a geotechnical civil engineer and retired in 2022 after winning his first election as Alder for District 2 in the City of Green Bay. Prior to his election, he was appointed and served as a member of the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals for over 3 years. He was appointed to the Equal Rights Commission upon his election by Mayor Gunrick, and he was also appointed to the Personal and Finance Committees as well as the Plan Commission. Please welcome Alder Hutchison.
Thank you very much. I think the commission has, oh, that's no problem. That is no problem. I think this commission has done hard work, and it's got a report out there. I'm part of the next phase. It goes to the Common Council, and we get to discuss it. So, believe it or not, the people out here are going to be the ones who carry the day, because we're going to need to talk hard and fast in the Common Council. I'm hopeful that it's going to carry the day, but it's going to not come easily, if you can believe it. I wish all the Common Council members could be here today. I'm glad Alder Eck is here. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I would like to say how impressed I am of the city staff, the council members, the mayor and his staff, and all the city committee and commission members after working with them many of these over these last 9 months. I'm thankful for the positive attitude and the sense of community service that is prevalent. We have a good group of people in the city of Green Bay. We really do. In the Common Council, we really do. They're caring people. it just may need to be talking a little bit with expression and with conviction and be precise. The honesty that was displayed here tonight is awesome because that's what we need. Honesty speaks. I had a whole bunch of words here for the short-term, intermediate, and long-term recommendations, but I don't have to go through that. So my speech is going to be cut really short. The city of Green Bay has a lot of good things going for it. You may not know it, but there's a professional football team right here in this city. Yeah, that is good to know. The city of Green Bay has clean and great tasting drinking water. It's been developed, maintained, and so designed to be able to be a source of drinking water for neighboring cities. We're trying to sell the water, and they're selling it. The park system is second to none, providing green areas for families and neighborhood activities. We have the Bay Beach Amusement Park, which is growing and another source of economical family fun. Our citizens are in general friendly, hardworking, helpful, and becoming more diverse. We're more diverse now than Madison is. The Fox River, for years considered a smelly cesspool, I don't know if you can remember 20 years ago, has been dredged and the PCBs effectively removed or capped, making it one of the premier fisheries in the nation. It's awesome. Green Bay, whether ready or not, whether willing or not, will become a migration destination within the U.S. It's already in textbooks. Either go to the Northwest, the state of Washington, or go to the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, and we're right in the middle. We're right in the middle. So we're going to get a lot of influx of U.S. citizens coming here. We don't have hurricanes. We don't have citywide floods. We do have isolated cases. We're working on it. We don't have fires, excessive heat, or excessive cold, which is debatable. Earthquakes, and the growing season of our neighboring farms is becoming longer, not shorter. Green Bay, along with the upper Midwest, will experience population growth exceeding normal expectations. This will exacerbate the housing shortage, especially for those with limited income, if we do not get a grip on this situation right now. It's not happening 5 years from now or 10. It's right now. I am hopeful our city leaders, our common council, will heed, consider, and discuss the recommendations within this important report, especially with the future prospects heading our way, in order to better our current situation with regard to low-cost housing. Please read the report. Please talk to your alders. Please spread the word. We have to do the right thing, and we have to do it now. I will be an advocate for these recommendations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alder Hutchison. Now, and I just want to say a special thanks for all your service and commitment to this initiative. I know you could be elsewhere because you're retired. You could be on vacation in Florida or something, but you choose to be here fighting right next to us. So thank you for that. And I want to also say thanks for ensuring that at all Common Council meetings, decisions are made with equity and equality at the forefront. So thank you for that. As you all can see, housing is a huge, there's a housing crisis, and the crisis is, the negative impact is tenfold. So this report that we have here tonight is significant, and it will be impactful. So right now, we'll move forward with the next agenda item. And John?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the report and direct staff to implement the report's recommendations.
Okay, thank you for making the motion, Shelton, second by Vincent. We'll move forward with taking a roll call vote. When I call your name, please say yay or nay to signify your support for the report. Commissioner Hassan? Commissioner Kostishka? Alder Hutchison?
Yay.
Commissioner Guzman? Commissioner Vincent? Commissioner Shelton?
Yay.
All right, well, by unanimous vote from the commissioners who are present here today, the ERC housing report stands approved to move forward to be presented to the comment, moves forward for the staff to recommend the report's recommendations. All right, so that leads us to the end of our event tonight, and I have a few last statements to add into this. The next step for this report is to be presented at Common Council on February 7th, and that's where they'll hopefully open up floor for discussion, since tonight's it was just guest speakers. The report can be found on the city website. I think it's live right now, Joe, is that correct? Okay, tomorrow, but we have hard copies. We have some extra on the table if you'd like. And if you have any questions, or if you're part of the media, I do invite you to stay here after to ask questions. But I'd like to say a special thank you to everyone who is here tonight. And on behalf of the ERC, thank you for supporting us in writing this report and approving it. I'd like to thank audience members, guest speakers, the elders who are able to join us tonight. I want to thank John, Commissioner Shelton, for his service as vice chair through this initiative and for the past couple years here. Mayor Genrich, thank you for being here with us tonight. Joe, thanks for coordinating things. And thanks, commissioners and guest speakers. We couldn't have made this event tonight possible without everyone's support and help. Everyone's support is vital to make this city a city that's welcoming to all. So I hope that this is the start of a movement, and we gain more traction after this day to make sure that we put policies in places to make everyone feel welcomed and safe. So without further ado, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn this meeting. Motion by Alder Hutchison, second by Kostishka. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Media, if you have any questions, you're welcome to stay after.